The light gun, it's been around since the beginning of video games and is definitely one of the most important accessory any console could have. I am the Game Collector and this is Second Opinion Games, and today I'm gonna show you my favorite light gun games and favorite light guns.
Second Opinion Games.
Duck Hunt's one of the coolest pack-in titles I ever got. Of course, I was playing Super Mario Brothers far more than I was playing this one, but with these cute little ducks floating around and being able to zap them out of the air, it's fun for everybody in the house. Of course, when that dog laughs at you, it's not very fun. Too bad you can't shoot him in the face like you really want to. Wild Gunman was pretty cool. It's a cowboy-themed game where you're told to draw, and then you pull up your zapper and shoot down dead the cowboys, and you have like half a second to a second to do so. Sometimes there's two cowboys on screen at once, and then it's really hard, especially because sometimes both of them don't draw down on you, which means if you're trigger happy, you're gonna lose a life. And then you have just an all-out shootout scene, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. I really dig this game. Just like Hogan's Alley, this time you're shooting criminals and good guys alike. You're not really supposed to shoot the good guys, but let's face it, it's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen a lot. Maybe it's their fault for just hanging out with all these criminals in the first place. Of course, all these games are played with the old original zapper. It's about the most simplistic light gun you possibly could have. You point at the screen, you shoot, and the thing makes an awful loud noise. If you don't want to use that gun to make the awful loud noise, well then you can play all these games on the Wii U, where they were totally recreated and use crosshairs on the screen. Now you can use the D-pad on the Wiimote to make the crosshairs go away, but I think it makes it much, much harder. Of course, getting rid of the crosshairs would make it harder, but I mean, it's really not a light gun, the Wiimote, and it's really not meant to be aimed like this. And while I'm here, I might as well talk about Kokot 2, because I completely forgot about this game. It looks like everything's made out of cardboard in this world, and it's very much like Point Blank, which we'll get to down the road, in which you're given a mission and you shoot everything on the screen. It's a heck of a lot of fun, even if, again, it's not played on a true light gun. Of course, the zapper's big flaw is when you have a game with tons of stuff on screen at once and you have to pull the trigger unbelievably fast. Then that really loud, irritating sound is just gonna destroy you. Like Operation Wolf here is completely unplayable with the zapper, even though you can play it with the zapper. No, you're gonna much rather turn to a game controller, in which case, why even play a light gun game where you have to use the controller? The Genesis and Super Nintendo time is sort of like the dark ages of light guns because they both came out with light guns, but they were just terrible. The Menacer and the Super Scope were awful. That's why I turned to the Justifier. Playing Lethal Enforcers or Lethal Enforcers 2 with the Justifier is a total dream. First, it's a well-balanced piece of plastic, also very simplistic. The trigger pull is just right, and you could even daisy chain them together, which means the player 2 controller plugs in directly to the player 1 controller, and you only need one pink gun to do so, whether it be for the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, or even the Philips CDI. Trying to get a hold of that pink gun's nearly impossible now, but Lethal Enforcers is a very average game, and probably shouldn't be played anyway. Of course, you could play it for the PlayStation 1, and then you should probably have the Scorpion, probably my favorite light gun. Not only does it fit perfectly in your hands, it feels very balanced. The reload button, which means it's a button that you could press that shoots off screen so you never have to actually shoot off screen, is perfectly placed. There's even a secondary trigger as the hammer, which allows you to, say, cycle through your guns on Elemental Gearbolt, which is another terrific game for the PlayStation 1. You also have a normal fire or an automatic fire to make it just shoot like a machine gun, but you never really need it. It also has a pedal attachment to play games like Time Crisis, which are one of my favorite style games. You have to duck and cover, and you of course want to use that pedal to do so. It also allows you then to reload and then jump back out and shoot everyone dead. It also has a vibration feature built into the gun itself, making this just all around the best thing ever. Heck, You could even play Sega Saturn games on it, but I'm not done talking about the great PlayStation 1 games yet. There's Project Horned Owl, which is graphically quite impressive. All these different machines and robots come at you, and you're just blowing them apart left and right. It's ridiculously fun. Point Blank, though, is one of my favorite games, and they mixed an RPG element experience to this, which they really didn't need to have to do at all. And you could even move your character around on the screen by shooting where he should go, sort of like a point-and-click mouse game. This is a ridiculously good time, and they didn't have to add this RPG feature in, but boy am I glad they did. Of course, Europe got a few exclusives like Ghostbusters. Trying to play this on a North American TV means the colors are all screwed up. All the exclusive light gun games on the PlayStation 1 that never left Europe are all very cheap and generic titles. I really can't recommend any of them, but I can't fault you for giving them a try. Moving over to the Sega Saturn, of course you're going to want to play some House of the Dead, and you should probably plug in the Sega Stunner for this. It's also a very simplistic light gun with just a perfect trigger pull. However, if you wanted something with a little bit more firepower, you could pick up the Super Cobra, which has an automatic reload, and maybe even the ability to turn into a full-fledged machine gun. Of course, on the Sega Saturn, I still rather stick to the Scorpion because I could use it for either system. And then play a little bit more Crypt, and it is just ridiculous how many creatures come after you at once, and the variety of them are kind of shocking, unlike House of the Dead, where it just feels like tons of zombies, worms, and bats are flying at you every 2 seconds. Crime Patrol's a little bit more realistic looking, maybe even too realistic, because sometimes when the bad guys shoot you dead, you feel a little bad because your partner is really let down. It is a really short game though, so you really aren't going to spend a lot of time with it. Virtual Cop, that's where my jam truly is on the Saturn, being able to take down all these enemies, and I love how it zooms in on the enemy, making it easier to hit them, and it helps to eliminate a common problem with a light gun itself. Most of the light guns that I talked about today have a little bit of a problem hitting the corners of the screens, specifically the bottom of the screen. So having Virtual Cop do this where it zooms in completely takes that out of the equation and makes it an extremely fun light gun game. The Dreamcast had Virtual Cop 2. It's more of the same, but with more redefined graphics, and even some new light guns to go along with it, like the Starfire, which in my opinion shoots a little bit to the left, and it also doesn't feel that balanced in your hands. Now I rather play with the Pelican, which sometimes feels like I'm holding a mini machine gun. Most of the time when I'm playing House of the Dead 2, I just turn it on full machine gun mode and mow down all of my opponents. Oh man, it's a total bloodbath now, just like in Confidential Missions, which feels like a sequel to like GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64, which never even got a light gun for that darn system. What the heck's wrong with that? Matter of fact, in America, we didn't get any of these light guns for the Dreamcast because of the Columbine shooting, which means I had to import them from Canada. You guys up north are finally good for something other than fighting polar bears and drinking maple syrup. It's not all good on the Dreamcast though, because we also have Death Crimson XO. This game is really hard to play, not because of its crippling slowdown, and sometimes the light guns aren't very accurate on it. No, it's hard to play because it's just boring. I think it's mostly because of the lack of voice acting, because they couldn't find any good voice actors. Have you played the other Dreamcast light gun games? None of the voice acting's very good. All you had to do was try, and you could have had a winner. Of course, you also would have been able to successfully program a good light gun game. And also there's weird sound effects when you shoot enemies, like it just feels off. Now we're moving on to the PlayStation 2, and the GunCon 2 is gonna finally make an appearance. I didn't talk about the GunCon 1 because the Scorpion also acts as the GunCon 1 with a simple button press. And the GunCon was also known for being one of the most accurate guns for any system because of this odd choice where it plugs directly into the video signal and sort of piggybacks off of that. Where the Scorpion got it right and made a little junction, the GunCon 2 got it wrong where you need to go out and buy a separate splitter, and also it just plugs in with a standard USB. The gun itself has buttons all over it, and even a D-pad, which is darn important for playing certain games. Now, what games are you going to play with this? How about Time Crisis 2, which is arcade perfect in nearly every way. It's duck and cover, glory at its finest. Then you have Ninja Assault, where you're shooting a whole bunch of ninjas, and they're going to come at you fast and furious, and ninjas are ridiculously hard to kill, and you're going to get hit a lot. This game is for experts only. Vampire Knight is another banger, where all the vampires just sort of jump out at you, and you take them down. Sometimes there's innocent people, though, and you have to shoot the parasites off their bodies in order to save their lives. There's this little girl who seems to tag along for no reason throughout the game other than to make the story just a little bit more ridiculous, and this is one of my favorite light gun games ever. Resident Evil Dead Aim, which uses that D-pad to walk around and explore a full Resident Evil style universe with a very complete storyline. This is actually my third favorite Resident Evil game after Resident Evil 4 and Revelations. And finally, we have Dino Stalker, a game that lets you shoot up a bunch of dinosaurs and move freely as you walk around, picking up more deadly weapons and more time extensions, because the whole game is under a very strict time limit, and when it runs out, you are dead. Now, I absolutely love light guns, as you can plainly see. So what is the very best console for playing light guns? Well, whatever console you can get a good light gun for. I think the Dreamcast is terrific, but it only has a handful of good ones. The PlayStation 2 is insane, but trying to get your hands on them, boy, it's gonna get expensive fast. The Sega Saturn is also ridiculously expensive, and the quality isn't just quite there. The NES Zapper is great, but the games are unbelievably simplistic. The Justifier can't be justified even looking at, which leads us to the PlayStation 1 taking the overall winner spot for having the best variety of games, the best light gun with the Scorpion, and it's probably not gonna break the bank. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching.
Roger, on our way.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it. This was a heck of a lot of work putting together all these light guns. So I want to know what one is your favorite. I know you guys all have a favorite out there. Let me know in the comments down below. And let me know what videos you want to see in the future. No matter how ridiculous it is, I'm probably going to take a shot at it. So until later, I will see you again, guys.